Saved by the bell. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Big day today. Donald Trump coming out and responding to this news. A big win for him here. He's got the appeal. It's been granted. And guess what? They're going to lower the bail. We're going to tell you just exactly how much, but huge news. Again, very, very good news for Donald Trump. The media is absolutely furious, as you can anticipate. Letitia's pretty perturbed, as you might anticipate, because gosh darn it, they can't let him get away with anything, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Boeing. The CEO is kaput there. Disney shares. We're going to look at those because Nelson Peltz is really, really giving them a hard time. But he said some things that were not exactly PC, and Disney's trying to use that to its advantage. But hang on. Maybe the joke's on Disney. Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, they split up, and Candace Owens is out with some of her first statements since then. We'll talk about all of it. Plus, oh, what is this, a mutiny over at MSNBC? Because you can't have Republicans on the air? You won't believe how these hosts are reacting to the former RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel's employment there. Oh my goodness, do we have stuff to talk about? I am Trish Regan. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. We're brought to you in part, as always, by our wonderful friends over at LegacyPMInvestments.com, 1-866-589-0560. That is their number. We'll talk later about gold, but 1-866-589-0560 is the number. Big news today. Ladies and gentlemen, cue the tape. We got a little Fox here. My friend Harris Faulkner announcing it.
Now, a New York appeals court has agreed to slash the amount of the bond that Donald Trump must post to cover a $454 million civil fraud verdict while he appeals it. So we're going to go from 454
oh boy. So, you know, this was totally nuts from the beginning. I told you how nuts it was. I mean, it's insane. Absolutely insane. Well, Donald Trump coming out and responding to the news today that the judge has decided to make it $175 million instead of $500 million. I mean, it's still kind of a crazy amount of money, let's be honest here, shall we? But it's better than $500 million, and he knows that. So watch him right outside the courthouse. This is just moments ago, just coming in. I want you to take a look.
You read the Andy McCarthy article, or Jonathan Turley, or many of the legals, I think almost every single one of them, that's not even a crime. We're being tried for something that's not even a crime. They say at most it's a misdemeanor, but there's no misdemeanor either. So we have violent criminals that are murdering people, killing people. We have drug dealers all over the place, and they go free and they can do whatever they want. But they go after Trump when there's not even a crime. And did you see the number of people were there? You had Colangelo, and behind him, and remember this, Colangelo was a DOJ guy. He's a Biden DOJ guy. Why is he in the Manhattan DA's office trying the case? That in itself is a conflict. He's in the Manhattan DA's office trying the case. I mean, that's called a conflict. And then, remember what I told you also, Mark Pomerantz, when Bragg heard about it, he went openly hostile. He said, that's one of the worst things I've heard. And you all covered that. Then all of a sudden, time goes by. You know, the great healer is time. Time goes by, and all of a sudden they forget that. But that's a terrible thing. Colangelo and Pomerantz, terrible thing. And the judge didn't want to rule on that. He said everything was fine, that what they did was fine. I don't think it's fine when they take a Hillary Clinton lawyer and put him in to prosecute me. I don't think that's fine. I think it's very bad. And he does it on the House.
You know, he's going to continue with the election interference argument because when you look at all of this, right, they're coming on every which way to Sunday. We had the hush money thing going on there, too, that he was at court for. I'm going to get to that in a second. But you look at all these different cases, and they're so aggressively targeting him that you start to say, well, really, is this about that, or is it about something else? Is it about the fact that he's continuing to move higher in the polls and Joe Biden's White House is completely freaked out, as is the media establishment, as is the so-called establishment in government, the so-called deep state? I mean, everybody is freaking out except for the people that are supporting Donald Trump, totally freaked out that he may just win come November. I happen to think at this point, he's probably going to. We'll see. We can get into the nitty gritty of some of these poll numbers, but he's got good news coming out of a lot of states, including places like Michigan. ladies and gentlemen. I want to go to Donald Trump right outside the courthouse also earlier today, speaking that he effectively accepted this decision, but that this judge that sort of seemed to have teamed up with Letitia James in some way, shape, or form was really off his rocker and not doing any kind of service to the American people. Watch.
Thank you very much. Judge Gorin has done a terrible disservice to the state of New York. What he's done is terrible. Businesses are fleeing. You see that. We just released a statement on Truth. Businesses are fleeing and crime is flourishing all over the state. And what he's done is such a disservice and should never be allowed to happen again. New York State is being battered by his decision. So I greatly respect the decision of the appellate division, and I'll post either $175 million in cash or bonds or security or whatever is necessary very quickly within the 10 days. And I thank the appellate division for acting quickly. But Judge Gorin is a disgrace to this country, and this should not be allowed to happen. Thank you very much.
I mean, honestly, it really shouldn't. I'm blown away by the case itself, right? The case itself, which, hey, you know, look, I've been a business reporter my whole career. I look at it and say, why do we have Letitia James coming in and trying to value his assets when Deutsche Bank, his lender, and he had already come to a deal? And by the way, the deal was done and over, and Deutsche Bank got paid back, so everybody made money. I mean, it's bonkers. And then you come up with $500 million that you want for the bond? I mean, this is unprecedented. $175 million is pretty bad. Thank you very much. Apparently, he's going to be able to come up with the money. We'll talk about the windfall he just got from Truth Social and whether or not that's going to stick momentarily. But first, Eric Trump, his son, went on with my former colleague, Maria Bartiromo, over the weekend. Maria is just wonderful. I love her. She's one of the good ones out there. Anyway, she had him on her program there on Fox, and he spoke to this. I mean, just how bizarre. He was getting laughed out of town. He was going around saying, can we get $500 million, $500 million for bail? I mean, I wondered about it. Or were they going to have to put a consortium of banks together to do this deal? I mean, it's bizarre. It's strange. And he said they were laughing. They were laughing. That's what we've become, ladies and gentlemen, a laughing stock. Because our courts are so messed up, they're asking for ridiculous things. Let's watch Eric.
This is an election interference, and they go out and they ask you to post a $500 million bond. Maria, I want to put that in context. I went out to the largest sureties in the world, the largest sureties in the country. They said, Eric, the last time we've seen a bond of that size is when we did the big dig in Boston, which was a $25 billion construction project that lasted almost 25 years. They're trying to put my father out of business. They're trying to take all his resources that he would otherwise put into his own campaign for presidency. This is New York State. This is what we're seeing. Letitia James campaigned on this promise, and now they're making him do something that's not physically possible. Putting up a $500 million bond. Bonds that size don't exist in this country. A $10 million bond is a large bond. A $15 million bond is an enormous bond. A $500 million bond. And Maria, remember one thing. The banks all testified Trump was the greatest borrower we've ever had. I mean, there was no victim. This is a crooked system with a crooked attorney general in a crooked court that literally wants to put my father out of business. And you know who they're actually going to hurt? They're going to hurt the thousands and thousands of employees that we have in New York State. These are janitors. These are doormen. These are, people that work in commercial buildings. They're going to hurt those individuals, not the executive. They're going to hurt those individuals. How about all the contractors that we employ to do build-outs? How about everybody else that relies on our family, thousands of people, all for their own political vendetta? It's insane.
I'm trying to understand how this number came about, $454 million or $464 million, and what the real number is. How did they come up with this number?
You know what? It was a crooked number. There are no victims. There is no number. Right. The number should be zero. My father's run a great company. I run a great company. We've never had a default. We've never missed a payment. We've never been in a breach of covenant. Every single one of our lenders came out, and he goes out, and the judge comes out and says, I want to take disgorgement. I want to go back, and I want to take interest rates that you paid on mortgages and put it up to 10, 11, 12% and go back 20 years, and we already won this in the appellate court. The appellate court already said that there's a statute of limitation, that 99% of what he put in there is thrown out. But, Maria, this isn't about this. This is lawfare. They want to hurt my father, who is winning the presidential race right now. He's beating Biden in every single poll, in every single swing state. He came out and said he wants to put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into his campaign. Right. And how do they deprive him of that? They have that judge that you have on the screen right there come up with an astronomical number, give you zero time to post a bond that's not even commercially available in the United States. It's not. No one's ever seen it.
Totally right. It's so bonkers. Well, they wanted him to have to sell his assets, right? Trump coming out on Truth Social and saying, nobody's taking my babies. Nobody's taking my babies. Trump Tower, his Westchester County golf course. I mean, there was Letitia on Friday filing the paperwork in Westchester County because she's already willing and able to seize assets, as she's told us over and over again. Here she is on ABC News saying, guess what I'm ready to do?
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Well, guess what, Letitia? It's not going to happen because he said he's going to pay the $175 million bond, which, by the way, again, is absolutely huge. Like, let me just emphasize that again. $175 million is a lot of money. I mean, it's not $500 million, but 175 is pretty unprecedented in the bond community as well for something like this. So it's not as though he's getting out unscathed, but don't tell the mainstream media that. Don't tell Letitia that. Don't tell AOC that. I mean, everybody seems to think that somehow he's getting a sweet deal. A sweet deal. I mean, for goodness sakes, he paid all the money back. Letitia thinks, Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million instead of the $240 or $250 million that even Bloomberg, I realize they're reporters with their own biases, but even Bloomberg is estimating it to be worth. I mean, come on. Well, AOC is flipping out. Over the weekend, she went on to one of her favorite networks, that would be CNN, and she was telling the anchor there, be ready, because he's going to get treated differently than anyone else would. Yeah, he's treated differently. I'd go with that because nobody else would be facing 175 or a $500 million bond bail. No one else. Anyway, here's AOC back in her delusional world on that delusional network.
What do you say to an independent voter or an average voter who looks at what's going on with Donald Trump? You have his assets might be seized tomorrow. You also have the hush money case from the district attorney, Alvin Bragg of New York. You also have the Georgia case about election interference. You also have the special counsel investigation on election interference. You also have the classified documents case down in Florida. That's 5 cases.
In other words, there's a lot of cases.
And to a voter, what do you say to a voter who says, well, that doesn't look like he's being treated equally before the law? That looks like somebody that the government is going after.
Has there ever been a president, Republican or Democrat, that has been subject to this level of criminal charges, indictments, and investigations? This is not about party. This is not about politics. This is about corruption and criminality. We're talking about an individual who ordered essentially a terrorist attack on the Capitol of the United States in order to retain power. Wow. That is not about being a Republican. It is not about being a Democrat. It's about being an unethical and individual who is subject and prone to criminality. And unfortunately, this is the state that we're in. And I actually think that the fact that it's happening in so many places and so many jurisdictions cuts in the face of that. This is not just New York. This is Georgia. This is federal courts as well.
Oh my goodness. So you hear how she's ratcheting up the language. Just be prepared, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even want to repeat what she said, but it's some pretty darn aggressive stuff. And there's a new characterization, if you would, of J6. It's more than just taking over the government now, right? I mean, you might as well be in Gaza listening to AOC, or rather in Israel as Gaza attacks, right? Oh my gosh. All right, so that's AOC. Meanwhile, the leftist media is out there and they're like trying to digest this all in real time. I was watching this morning and I'm like, okay, guys, he's not being treated differently other than the fact that he shouldn't be paying 175, let alone $500 million. Here is MSNBC trying to digest all the information that's coming into them and they can't quite get it all in real time. It must just be because the odds are stacked against Biden in favor of Trump for some corrupt purpose. I'm like, okay, am I in an alternative universe? Let's watch.
But I'm being told right now that that bond, that $500 million bond that had been set and that the former president had to deal with today, has now been reduced to $175 million. So that $465 million plus bond that he was looking at, or has now been reduced. As of right now, we're getting this breaking news. This appeals court allowing the former president to post a smaller bond of $175 million within 10 days. David, what does that tell you?
Jose, it tells me something that you and I have talked about before, and that is the playbook is different for former President Trump. We were literally talking about this the last time you and I discussed this case. I expect for them to do something for him that's different than what you see for everybody else when they go to court. So,
of course, you're going to see something that's different. It's going to be so much worse. It's going to be worse because it happens to be Donald Trump. But somehow in their minds, Donald Trump's getting a break on this. $175 million. Give me a break, you guys. Come on. But you know what? I will get back to this. I mean, if they can do it to him, who's to say they can't do it to you? You heard Donald Trump in that little press conference, sort of impromptu afterwards, saying, what the heck is wrong with New York City? Like, New York City is actually going to be ultimately penalized by this. I look at it and say the United States of America, it goes beyond New York. Because if you think you're going to start a business here, and if you're not protected by the courts because you happen to have a different political viewpoint and anybody can come after you, then heck, we really are some kind of banana republic. That's exactly what it feels like. And I've told you this, guys, before. I'll tell you again. I started my career covering banana republics on the financial side back at Goldman years ago, back in like 1999, 2000. So I have seen my share of it, all right? And I've done a ton of reporting throughout my career all over those places, from Paraguay to Colombia to Mexico, to Brazil, all over, okay? And there's something that they all have in common that I used to think was sort of different about us. And that's it, it's all politics. It's all politics. People go into politics just so that they can get a little something off the top. Well, here we're supposed to be better than that, right? Wasn't that the idea? And yet we are no better. That's what we're seeing in real time. The idea that you're going to hit them with a $500 million, I'm sorry, even $175 million. This is unprecedented. And for what? What is the crime? Where is your victim? Really? I mean, everybody made money. Oh, Letitia's just mad she didn't make any? Is that the deal? I'm sorry. This woman campaigned on one thing and one thing only because she clearly has no talent to do anything else. Let's watch Letitia James. I know this is cringeworthy. I know we don't want to watch it, but we're going to watch a little bit because you got to remember every single day, and you tell all your liberal friends out there that somehow think he got off. He got off. Got off from what? I mean, where is the victim? Where is the crime? Let's watch Letitia.
The President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House. That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered. We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this man.
Okay, we get the idea. We get the idea, all right? You remember, this is what she did. So she raised funds and she campaigned just to get them. And she was out there looking for some kind of crime. When she couldn't find a crime, like a real one, she gets this. Okay, so he inflated the square footage of his apartment. He thought Mar-a-Lago was worth more than she thought it was worth. I'll tell you, it's not worth 18 million bucks. Thank you very much. I mean, CNN even had to admit that on live television the other night. But Letitia's angry. She's furious right now because she feels like she ought to be able to send him straight into bankruptcy. That's why she was filing paperwork in Westchester County as late as Friday. And she's still chomping at the bit, hoping that he can't come up with $175 million for his new bond that he has to post in 10 days' time. He did say he would do it. So, Letitia, take that. Let's go back to that impromptu conference press conference he just had, Drew, the one with the flag behind him, because I think we have another 18 seconds or so. I just want to show everybody of him reacting to this ordeal.
You take a look at any one of them and you say any one of them, it wouldn't make any difference. This is all weaponization of DOJ and FBI. They raided my house in violation of a thing called the Fourth Amendment. Not allowed to do that. They raided my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. No notice, no nothing. They raided it. I can't believe it. Nobody can believe it. And we'll see how that all works out in the end. But it's illegal what they're doing. It's criminal what they're doing. And it's never been done before in this country.
No, it never has been. I mean, this is definitely unprecedented stuff. Granted, he's kind of unprecedented himself. I mean, think about Donald Trump and who he is as a person. He goes blazing into Washington, and all the sort of status quo that existed, all the systems that had been in place, keep in mind, for 8 years under Barack Obama? Obama really had that thing layered up. And he had, I didn't like him. I don't like him. I think he was incredibly destructive for America, especially when it comes to race relations. I think he was absolutely god-awful on the economy. I mean, he was a socialist, so there you go, in my estimation. Anyway, Barack Obama did a lot to kind of stack the system. So that was 8 years of that. And don't forget, you've had a bloated government for so long. So Trump comes along and he's like, okay, well, I don't really think that makes sense. And by the way, that policy idea, forget about it. And you know what? We ought to put a tariff on China. And I'm going to tell them we're going to put a tariff on those goods coming in. And everybody in Washington, D.C. was like, oh my gosh, in real time. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that anyone had the audacity to challenge the system the way he did. And I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you this again, his policy was fantastic. His tax policy was fantastic. His trade policy was fantastic. And yes, he cared about the border because what president wouldn't? You're a country, for goodness sakes. You ought to have a border. And so everything has disintegrated since he left. Americans know that. And when you look at these polls, and I was just looking at them again this morning, you look at Nate Silver's, for example, overall, he's up 2 to 3 points in everything. So that takes in all the ones where he's not doing so well. But a lot of them, even Michigan, for example, Michigan, ladies and gentlemen, where you've historically had these sort of blue-collar Democrats, it's not flying. It's not flying in Michigan. The Biden agenda, the Bidenomics nonsense, none of it's working. Because people are saying enough is enough. I mean, James Carville being quoted over the weekend in the Louisiana Times, and then Maureen Dowd at New York Times had a follow-up story on it. It was just absolutely fantastic because Maureen, she talked about him being sort of the Cajun. What was it? Let me see if I can find this. What she actually said. It was absolutely positively hysterical the way she framed it. James Carville was the campaign manager for Bill Clinton. But he just came out with a whopper, and he said the whole problem with the Democrats really is that they've gone so female. They've leaned so female, and they're so into their wokeness their nonstop wokeness that they're actually costing themselves big time. I'm going to get you the exact quote. He actually talked to Maureen about how he himself had some issues teaching at LSU because everybody, especially the women, apparently were not happy with some of the things he said. He is concerned about Biden appearing to lose the support of black voters whom historically he had really been able to count on as a base. And he said, and I quote, "A suspicion of mine is that there are too many preachy females dominating the Democrats' culture and message." This is the interview with the Times in New Orleans. "Don't drink beer. Don't watch football. Don't eat hamburgers. This is not good for you. The message," he said, "is too feminine. Everything you're doing is destroying the planet. You've got to eat your peas." If you listen to Democrat elites, NPR is my go-to place for that, he said. The whole talk is about how women and women of color are going to decide this election. James Carville said, "I'm like, well, 48% of the people that vote are males. Do you mind if you have some consideration for them?" He's right. He's right. Okay, so like half the population is male. It's interesting he said 48%, but I'm just going to go with half the population is male. And you look at all these polls, I think Drew has them right here. Look at this. Trump leading Biden by 2 points. This is overall. These are all the polling averages. Real Clear Politics looking at these. And I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump does not perform as well as most politicians in polls. Why? Because nobody actually wants to say they're going to vote for him. So you can actually think about this and say, okay, we're going to add a little bit of a pad on there. Anyway, Trump leading Biden by 2 points, 46.7 to 44.7% in a two-candidate race. And by 4.3%, take a look at this, with RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, in the race. So that would be a three-candidate race. Robert Kennedy expected to announce his VP in the coming weeks. The ex-wife of one of the Google founders actually may be his VP. But in that case, it actually helps Trump even more because why? Oh, the Democrats have a bad candidate. They have a really bad candidate in Joe Biden. They ought to know that. Maybe they do know that. Maybe, in fact, all of these lawsuits have something to do with that, shall we say. So now Letitia James is going to go back to the well and hope she can get her $175 million. Again, the president, former president of the United States, Donald Trump, saying he's got it, he's going to pay it. He's got 10 days to do so. It is a heck of a lot of money still. But I got to say, fortune's going his way. This is amazing. We'll see whether or not this stuff holds. He can't actually cash out of this company that I'm going to tell you about for 6 months. But Truth Social, this would be the Trump Media Social Group. It's set to go public this week on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol DJT. And whoo, I mean, these numbers are massive. If this stuff holds, he's got 6 months until he can sell the shares. He's got like $3 billion right there, maybe even more today. We'll see how, again, the stock trades over the course of the week, but I want to share with you, this is Digital World Acquisition Group, which was just gangbusters today. Take a look at this number, up 25%. Again, the deal was approved by shareholders on Friday. It traded up on Friday and traded up even higher in Monday's session. And now we're going to go into Tuesday with the brand new company. DJT is the ticker symbol, and it's going to be traded on the NASDAQ. And we'll see whether it's, it's up there. Look, it's a social media company. We haven't seen a lot of social media companies go public lately, except Reddit just the other day. Reddit's got like $800 million in revenue compared to Truth Social, which is somewhere around $3 to $6 million in revenue. So, one has to be realistic about some of the valuations here. But I do think that this is an interesting kind of almost meme play, which, I'm a long-term person, so it's neither here nor there for me, but I do think a lot of people are going to look at this stock and say, I support Trump, therefore I support Truth Social, and it's their way, if you would, of helping him out, contributing in some way. It may actually stand as a bit of a proxy on whether or not he's going to win the election. So, wow, Truth Social going public tomorrow. We're going to be all over it here for you. The stock price trading up just DWAC. That is the company it's merging with. Just to back up for a second, if you guys aren't familiar with SPACs, they're like a 4-letter word on Wall Street lately. I'll tell you, a lot of great companies have gone public via a SPAC. It's a kind of merger agreement. I mean, Burger King comes to mind. But lately, because there was so much money out there and there were so many SPACs happening, like everybody was suddenly coming up with a SPAC. Because of that, you had other kinds of companies that maybe didn't have as much in the way of quality coming forward. Well, what did they do with Truth Social? The SEC was like, you can't take that public via a SPAC. We actually think that WAC, Digital World Acquisition Corporation, isn't a real SPAC. We think you guys knew that you were going to go out and acquire Truth Social before you did, and you can't do that. Typically, a SPAC is just a pool of capital. Investors come together and then they go looking. That's why it's a special purpose acquisition corporation, right? So you come together with all this money and then you go out and find something. So you can't know exactly what you're going to get ahead of time. And the SEC and others accuse them of knowing what they were going to get. Of course they did. Of course they did. Because I said in the beginning of this program, Donald Trump actually is treated differently. And he's not treated more favorably, he's treated less favorably. So of course the SEC was assuming everything bad about this. Anyway, they got the merger through, everybody agreed to it. It will begin trading. We're gonna watch it very, very carefully. Again, there's challenges for this company. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this in any way. It's gotta earn money, and that kind of space is tough right now. I mean, Elon is figuring that out, right? Elon Musk, who's turned into the most hated person in America besides Donald Trump, because he's daring to challenge the left. You can't do that these days. You just can't do that. And you know what? That's a problem. It's a big, big problem. Certainly for me, I imagine, certainly for you, and certainly for the good folks over at Job Creators Network. You know, this is a great team. Alfredo's been on the program. I've known Alfredo Ortiz for a number of years. He started this. And the wonderful thing about Job Creators Network is they are out there doing this grassroots kind of recruiting. If you're interested in being somebody who can stand up for your community, stand up for small business, stand up for capitalism, you really need to check them out. And even if you don't want to be the person that's out there saying all this, if you want to somehow help behind the scenes, or if you just want information about how you, as a small business owner, can benefit. Hey, I'm a small business owner now. I got my own thing now. It's kind of nice. Anyway, this is important for all of us out there. Even if you're an employee at a big business, you want to know about this stuff because you want to make sure that our capitalist principles are being protected every single day of the week. And that's what Alfredo and his team are doing there at Job Creators Network. You can go to joinjcn.com. You can sign up. So many resources there for all of us. Joinjcn.com. Give them a shot. It really is. It's going to be, you're going to thank me for it. And I'd like a report back. You know, this is a two-way conversation. I'm going to get to some of your live comments momentarily. But again, joinjcn, jobcreatorsnetwork.com. So Truth Social is going to come out and it's going to start trading. Well, I'll tell you this, guys. On paper, anyway, Donald Trump seems to have a little bit of money. I mean, he's got all these buildings, of course. So we know about that. His net worth was already estimated to be somewhere in the vicinity of $3 billion. Of course, he'd have to sell all the buildings in order to get all that. But then he just got a little sweetener by way of Truth Social. If this thing holds up, then he's going to really be a happy guy because then he's going to have somewhere in the vicinity of $6 billion plus. Shares on paper right now are valued at somewhere around $3 to $4 billion, which is why I kind of found it somewhat funny that the folks over at MSNBC, as recently as Friday, were trying to say he's got nothing. He's got no money at all, like doesn't have 2 cents to rub together. I'm like, guys, you know, what kind of Kool-Aid are you drinking? Or should I say, what are you smoking? Watch.
And if you're looking at something that just doesn't make sense, you know, there's a reason. And here, we're looking at something that makes no sense. This guy's getting crazier by the day. He's got no money. The campaign is just broke. People don't want to give money. He's down 200,000 contributors to where he was this time in the cycle 4 years ago. Biden's raised $71 million. People are begging, literally begging. And any idiot that runs some like podcast, they're begging. They're calling contributors and saying, how can I help? I want to write checks for Joe Biden. Put that number up again. What did Tip O'Neill say about money in politics? It's the mother's milk of politics.
So
right now,
Joe
Joe Biden's got
Scarborough
all he wants.
thinks the 71 million to the 33 million is going to be the whole story. Let me just tell you something, Joe. Money ain't everything. I think Hillary Clinton found that out. Did she not, guys? Right? Remember when Hillary Clinton was running in 2016 and she had so much more money than Donald Trump? And yet it didn't work. It didn't work because the message didn't resonate. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump came along and he totally turned everything on its head. He was doing rallies instead of the little tiny coffees. I remember it in real time because born and raised in New Hampshire, you know, live free or die in New Hampshire. You can get your cup, actually. Some of you guys have asked me on the store, the trishregan.shop. So feel free to do that and help support the show. Anyway, he was there in New Hampshire, and instead of going around and doing the little coffees in everybody's living room, like I grew up with, all of a sudden, he's renting out these giant auditoriums. And he's doing these massive rallies, and everybody would come. Everybody wanted to hear him. Well, one, he had the celebrity factor going for him, right? So that was certainly helpful. And two, he was able to do this, and it was a very sort of economized way of using his time while simultaneously getting the message out to a very large group of people, while also getting the free media coverage. You know, it used to be that, these politicians were so snooty and so snobby, and we're only going to do this reporter, and we're going to do that reporter, and we're not going to talk to you or you or you. And Barack Obama, great example. I've told you guys a story about how I threw a mic in his face on the campaign trail, and his person came up to me and was so angry, how dare you do that? We're never going to give you an interview when he becomes president. That's what they told me. And well, you know what? I never did get an interview when he became president. So I guess they followed through on that one. But you know, Donald Trump, he'd talk to anyone. He called into even Morning Joe all the time. They were all best buds, right? He was always on the airwaves. And the reason he did that, very smartly so, was he recognized the value in that free media. No politician had ever gotten that before, because you know what? None of these people really are thinking strategically the way they should. And by the way, absolutely the way they should if they want to help our country and save our country and bring our country into the future. So he turned everything on its head. He took all the free media he could get. He had these giant rallies, and he was able to get his message out to a very large group of people in a much more cost-efficient, economical way. And so I get back to this. It's not all money. Like, that is not the be-all, end-all. And if the Democrats can't realize that, then hey, so be it. Cheers, right? Because we frugal Republicans, we know how to do more with less, right? We don't believe in that bloat. Well, at least we shouldn't. We can talk a little bit about Ronna McDaniel, who was spending some $70K a quarter on flowers, allegedly. That was per one report. But before we do, there is a total mutiny going on over at MSNBC, ladies and gentlemen, right now. I mean, full-on, full-scale mutiny. Like, I'm waiting any day for, like, all the anchors to just walk out. They might actually unionize over this one. Of course, they make too much money. You get Joe and Mika now furious, absolutely furious that Ronna McDaniel was hired. Ronna McDaniel being the former head of the RNC. I mean, we don't associate with those types, right? Well, the woman who hosts Chuck Todd's old show, who they all seem to have to defend, because I remember Vivek or one of them kind of going after her a little bit in one of the debates, and Lester Holt, who's their main anchor for their 6:30 flagship show, he had to jump in and sort of save her there. Well, Chuck Todd came in to save her again. Let's listen to this woman who says, I just want you to know, before I interview Ronna McDaniel, oh, darn it, I did it. I always want to call her Ronald McDonald. I'm sorry. That's like some kind of slip. Ronna McDaniel, before I interview Ronna McDaniel on my show, I want you to know I had nothing to do with hiring her, i.e., I am totally powerless at my network and they're making me interview this woman anyway. I mean, come on, enough already. We know this is why nobody trusts you, because you actually aren't in charge. But anyway, here is this woman, Kristen Welker, speaking to the viewer about the interview she's going to do.
I'll be joined by former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel in her first interview since stepping down as party chair. In full disclosure to our viewers, this interview was scheduled weeks before it was announced that McDaniel would become a paid NBC News contributor. This will be a news interview, and I was not involved in her hiring.
Okay, so for all my lefty viewers out there, I want you to know I was not involved in this anyway. I mean, the interview seemed to go okay, right? Watch.
I think as long as the donors know that that's what they're doing. And so it is in the waterfall of it. It's the Save America before the RNC. What I also think that means is that the campaigns or the RNC is being truthful when they're saying they're not going to pay the legal bills, that it is going to continue to run through the Save America PAC.
But ultimately, these donations are going first to pay his legal bills. People who may be struggling in some cases to make ends meet. Is there not an ethical challenge with that?
If they feel strongly to support his legal bills, then they have every right to do so. And I think he's being very open that they're helping with his legal bills.
And you, of course, paid $2 million for his legal bills while he was still in office. Do you have any regrets about that? Do you think that was an appropriate use of RNC funds?
You know, as a former president, as somebody who raised a lot of money into the RNC, we paid less than $2 million in legal bills.
I mean, by the way, he's the candidate. They're coming at him every which way. And like, Kristen doesn't want the RNC to help pay the legal bills. I mean, you don't have a candidate if he's in jail. I mean, I guess technically he still could run from jail. But like, if this is a strategy of the Democrats, okay, we're going to just bankrupt him. We're going to make sure he has no RNC money. That's not going to fly. Meanwhile, the whole like, we're just going to wall ourselves off from anything conservative, including Ronna McDaniel, who, let's face it, is not exactly a favorite among many conservatives. You'd think she'd be fine at MSNBC. Well, then it just shows you who they really are. They have no interest in hearing from the other side or any other side other than their own. Chuck Todd, the guy who used to have that show, but I guess is too lazy to show up every Sunday, making it clear.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. So I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So it is, you know, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on.
And he goes on to say, that our bosses put you in a really bad position. Oh, wow. It is a mutiny, for goodness sakes. All of us journalists at MSNBC were so upset about this because we don't know, like, is she really a journalist? No, Ronna's not a journalist, okay, guys? She's not. She's the former head of the RNC. You know, you hired Chelsea Clinton, right? I don't think she was a journalist. You hired Jenna Bush. She's not a journalist. I mean, say what you want about this. I don't love it. It's in part access, right? What do you think George Stephanopoulos is over at ABC News, which, by the way, he and ABC are incidentally getting sued by Donald Trump for some of their recent commentary and defamation, according to Trump. So it's not like everybody in the building is a journalist. A lot of people are political commentators because they've actually worked in politics. A lot of people are commentators on the military because they used to be in the military. A lot of people are legal commentators because they were big deal, maybe still are big deal lawyers. In other words, that's part of what the organization has. And yeah, maybe there's some access in there too. And boy, does that make you mad. Are you just afraid she's getting paid 2 cents more than you, I wonder? I doubt she is, Chuck. But boy, Mika and Joe, they're not having it either. I mean, it even made the Wall Street Journal. There's a big splashy headline there. And they had to talk about it on their show. I mean, hey, they got to get in on this action too, right? Watch.
Let's talk about the hiring of former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel.
Well, she was on Sunday's Meet the Press. It was her first appearance since NBC News hired her as a political analyst. I know you won't be surprised to know that we've been inundated with calls this weekend, as have most people connected with this network, about NBC's decision to hire her. We learned about the hiring when we read about it in the press on Friday. We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons, including, but not limited to, as lawyers might say, Ms. McDaniel's role in Donald Trump's fake elector scheme and her pressuring election officials to not certify election results while Donald Trump was on the phone.
To be clear, we believe NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices to provide balance in their election coverage. But it should be conservative Republicans, not a person who used her position of power to be an anti-democracy election denier. And we hope NBC will reconsider its decision. It goes without saying that she will not be a guest on Morning Joe in her capacity as a paid contributor. Here's why.
But to the question, though, do you disagree with Trump saying he's going to free those who've been charged?
I do not think people who committed violent acts on January 6th should be freed.
So you disagree with that? He's been saying that for months. Ronna, why not speak out earlier? Why just speak out about that now?
When you're the RNC chair, you kind of take one for the whole team, right? Now I get to be a little bit more myself, right?
Well, this is what you said a year ago to Chris Wallace. I want to play you what you said.
Are you saying, as the chair of the Republican Party, that you still have questions as to whether or not Joe Biden was the duly elected president?
Joe Biden's the president.
No, I didn't ask you whether he's the president.
No, I don't think that. I think
there
were lots of problems.
Do you think he won the election?
I think there were lots of problems with 2020.
Do you think he
won the election?
Pardon?
But ultimately, he won the election. But there were lots of problems with the 2020 election. 100%.
And that's fair.
But I don't think he won it fair. I don't. I'm not going to say that.
So you didn't say he won it fair at that point. Can you say, as you sit here today, did Joe Biden win the election fair and square?
He won. He's the legitimate
Did he win
president.
Fair and square?
Fair and square, he won. It's certified. It's done. But I
Ronna,
do think,
why
Kristen, let me just say something.
To say that, why has it taken you until now to be able to say
I'm going to push back a little because I do think it's fair.
Woohoo! Okay, so you've got Mika and Joe saying, she's not coming on our air. It's a big deal. Made the Wall Street Journal. And Rashida Jones, who's the president of MSNBC, well, she's the one who hired her. She's kind of in a bad spot because she's got the inmates running the asylum. She has been out there assuring staffers that, quote, there are no plans to have McDaniel on the network. Forgive me, she's not the one who hired. This was NBC News. You see, they get the cable arm and then they got NBC News. And so Rashida runs the cable arm. She said, don't worry, we're not going to have her on the network. And individual shows on MSNBC remain editorially independent and can book guests at their discretion. Oh my goodness. So I guess she gets to go on the Today Show. I guess she gets to go on Evening News, but she doesn't get to go on Morning Joe because they're not going to have her. And she has to go on that weekend show that the guy with the goatee there used to host, Chuck Todd. I'll tell you, they got a little bit of a problem there because they got all these big personalities that are really angry. How dare you hire her? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? We don't want her. And then the question becomes, are they going to fire? This reminds me of CNN, like all over again. Remember when CNN brought in that guy, Chris Licht, and he actually had the audacity to do a town hall with Donald Trump? And all the anchors went crazy. Oh my gosh, we can't believe we're doing a town hall with Donald Trump. Blah, 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 blah. And it was this huge ordeal. And then the next thing you know, Chris Licht is out on his ASS. You kind of wonder what's going to happen here. Who's going to go first? The person that brought her in, Ronna McDaniel, or will it be Ronna? I'll tell you, what? I'll feel for her if it actually is her, because Ronna doesn't really deserve to be offered a big contract and then sent packing just because Joe and Mika and Chuck Todd don't happen to like her very much. We'll watch that company's stock price. Let's watch that one carefully, along with none other than shares of Boeing. Shares of Boeing way up in today's session, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because the CEO is out. Dave Calhoun is stepping down after that really, really bad situation with Alaska Airlines. I'll jigger your memory in just a second, but first, take a look at share prices here today. You can see shares of Boeing trading up significantly. Of course, nowhere's near where they used to be. This is a company that used to trade around $300 a share. Now it's lucky to get to $200 a share. And why? Well, it's just had a whole series of problems. I mean, there's that 747 MAX thing that kept having problems. I mean, deadly consequences there. And then remember what happened with American Airlines? I mean, this is unbelievable, and we got the footage to prove it. Let's take a look at this, Drew, if you can pull that one up. See, if you're watching, if you're listening, I should say, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you very much. Good for you. We want to continue getting everybody to listen on Apple Podcasts. I'll just describe what you're seeing, which is the seats during the flight that was on the West Coast with Alaska Airlines. One of the actual doors just completely blew open. It was wild. A child's teddy bear got sucked out. The t-shirt off a child was just ripped off of that child. Thank goodness for the seatbelt. I guess this is, reason never to take that seatbelt off. You see that plane and you can see just an empty area. Thank goodness this was not worse. Well, all the airlines, understandably, have been going over to Boeing and saying, wait a second, what's going on? Like, can you give us some assurance on safety? And there's been a series of problems, and basically none of the airlines felt as though Boeing was able to give them enough confidence in these actual planes. And so that's why the company's stock price is down. And that's why this Dave Calhoun is out. He was brought in after they had had problems with some other airlines. And so he was supposed to clean things up. And he wasn't clearly able to do that. Meanwhile, you have two other executives that are also out. I'll give you their names. Board Chair Larry Kellner and Stan Deal, head of the company's commercial planes business. They are also leaving Boeing as the board tries to control all of these challenges that have effectively shaken everyone's confidence in this once iconic airplane maker. So this is a really big deal. I mean, look, when you travel on a plane, what do you want? You want to feel safe. And, the customer service and all that stuff, that's all an afterthought. Bottom line, you got to be and you got to feel safe. And for the airlines themselves to not feel confident enough in whatever Boeing was delivering, that is a really, really big problem. In fact, let me quote for you the CEO of Ireland's Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, who came out shortly after this announcement. He's a top Boeing customer, and he said on Monday that the airline, Ryanair that is, welcomed this much-needed management change. The shakeup, he said, was good for the U.S. plane makers' customers, and he applauded this decision to step down. I mean, wow. I mean, I get, you know what? Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. At the end of the day, when things are going badly, the onus is on the CEO, the one at the very, very top of the company, right? I mean, maybe it was a mechanic who did something wrong. Maybe it was this division where there was something off, but ultimately, who does it come down to? It comes down to the CEO. We could make certain analogies, shall we say, related to that. In other words, whoever is in charge, in this case it's Boeing, needs to take responsibility, and shareholders are relieved. Now, they don't have a new CEO going in. They've got an interim person who's a board member, used to be over at Qualcomm. He's going to come in and kind of run things and run the search for the new CEO. So we wish Boeing, obviously, very well. We all need our airline transportation, and we all want to be safe. Another company where the CEO is increasingly in the hot seat happens to be none other than Disney. Shares of Disney very much in focus today after Nelson Peltz, who's an activist investor, and he's out there battling Bob Iger because he wants the new yet old CEO. Bob was the original CEO, and he came back to, quote unquote, save the company from Bob Chapek. Bob Iger is getting a showdown here with Nelson Peltz, who is a billionaire. He runs something called Trian Fund, and he's looking at Disney saying, hey, you know what? I think I see a little opportunity here. I see opportunity because this company, which used to trade at $200 a share, is now trading around $100 a share, and it's not working. Whatever they're selling, nobody's buying. Think about all the movie flops. Heck, they've had to pull the live Snow White or delay it after some $300 reported million was spent on this. That was the Snow White with the woman from West Side Story, Rachel Zegler, who had a bunch of really terrible things to say about Snow White and the entire story before the whole thing got pulled. Anyway, Nelson's like, what the heck is going on? Why can't they just make good entertainment? And why can't they get their act together? Why can't they actually have theme parks that don't keep you in line for hours and hours and hours and hours? It's an issue right now. Gosh, there was just a story about the airports in Orlando, Florida, getting swamped with spring breakers. Check this out. Headline in the Daily Mail. Stunning videos show massive crowds at Disney World. There are massive crowds. I mean, check this video out. This came to us on social media, and it's insane. Like, there are so many people there. It is so crowded. You got to wait like 81 minutes just to ride Space Mountain. Who needs it? I mean, they're charging you $160, $180. The prices change. They float depending on demand. I imagine the prices are even higher right now because so many people are going to Disney at this particular time. And the way it works is the more people that want to go, the higher the prices. So everybody's flooding the theme park. They're waiting forever in lines. They don't come out with any decent movies. And an activist investor like Nelson Peltz, who's more conservative than he is liberal, his daughter's married to David Beckham and Victoria Beckham's son, frame of reference from an entertainment culture perspective. Anyway, he just did the unthinkable. Oh my gosh, Nelson, you are in so much trouble with Disney right now because you're not supposed to say what you said. He's saying some rather non-PC stuff. You see, he's saying, I guess, what a lot of people are thinking, which is, why do I have to be preached to every single time I go to see a Disney movie? It makes me really not want to go and see them anymore. He did an interview with the FT, the Financial Times out of London, and this thing came out on Friday, and now Disney is riding it as much as they can all the way to the bank, which I don't know is they're going to have that much mileage on. You see, he commented on some of these recent films, saying things like, why do I need an all-black cast? Or, why do I have to have a Marvel movie that's all women? Not that I have anything against women, but why do I have to do that? Right? And here's the quote from the FT and recycled by Reuters saying, why do I need an all-black cast? You might be referring there to the Black Panther movie. Look, these are the things that you're not supposed to say. I think he was having this lunch with the reporter. I read the article. He was drinking a glass of wine. He pointed out that he normally just drinks Pepsi or a softie, and he decided to go with the wine, and he started blurting out what perhaps a lot of people are actually thinking. Like, why do I have to sit here and have a cast that's all women or all black or all this or all that? Why can't I just watch the classics with the cast of characters that we've always seen? And Disney's response would be, oh, we're innovating, we're diverse. I mean, that works until it doesn't work. I mean, when your customer base no longer wants to go to the movies and see what you're offering because you're more obsessed with diversity than you are the actual content, then you got yourself a little problem. And that does explain, in part, why this share price has gone all the way from $200 just, 3.5 years ago to $100 today. I mean, it kind of feels like the U.S. economy. You get obsessed with the wrong stuff, and suddenly you're in deep you-know-what. So now Disney is like, haha, we got him. We've showed everybody how clueless this guy is, how he is not woke enough to be on our board. But at the same time, maybe that not woke enough is exactly what you need on your board. When I talk about diversity, and I love diversity, but when I talk about diversity, I don't mean just, okay, we need somebody who's this, that, and the other. I mean, you need people from different viewpoints so you can have a healthy intellectual debate about what it is that you're going to bring forward for programming. Nelson Peltz brings up some good points. Do we always have to be indoctrinating people when they go to the movies? He also points out the obvious, which is that Bob Iger is getting kind of old and they need to have a game plan in place. Let me tell you, they never want to talk about that at Disney. I've interviewed Iger many times and always enjoyed talking to him. But I remember the one sort of hot button, sticky issue that the PR people would call you about and they never wanted you to talk about was his retirement. He never wanted to talk about a succession plan. I think Nelson knows that that's a little bit of a weak, or shall we say, sore spot, certainly a weak spot for the company. You got to have a succession plan because the Bob Chapek stuff didn't go so well. So they have nobody in place to take over for Bob Iger. Nelson Peltz is like, we got to fix that. And by the way, while we're at it, can we stop with the sequels? Like, don't you guys have anything new? Anything new in the pipeline? I mean, how many Frozens can you do? How many Star Wars can you do? Star Wars is a great franchise. I get it. But will it still be when you're so obsessed with wokeness that you have to go and you hire the this, that, and the other director? The one that says, oh, I enjoy making men uncomfortable. And then, I mean, look, Disney, you do you. Good luck with it. As an investor, I'd be pretty skeptical unless Nelson can get in there and turn things around because the wokeness has taken over. I'll tell you, this happens throughout our country, our society, and it's happening all over Wall Street right now. It's a big part of why I started 76 Research with my good friend Rob, who's managed billions for many years, 25 years on Wall Street. And both of us are looking at this going, this is insane. Like, people are not making the right choices for the best opportunities for the future. And we're all about your future, long-term future. Because, Uncle Joe or Uncle Sam is not going to be there. And you got massive inflation that everyone's still dealing with, and I expect will continue to deal with for the foreseeable future, no matter what the Fed says. And so you want to make sure that you're set up. You want to make sure that you have good long-term holdings. And I'll tell you, the time is now. The time is actually yesterday or 10 years ago or whenever. I say this even to new parents. Make sure the first thing you do is you set up some kind of fund, a 529K plan, for example, for your kids so that you're going to be able to pay for college should they want that someday. But make sure you're also taking care of yourself. And so this is a big part of what Rob and I are trying to do at 76research.com. We have model portfolios there based on sort of your appetite for risk and what you're trying to invest in. We have what's called the 76 report, which is more of a macro overall look at things. Does include from time to time some of our picks that are in the model portfolios, 10 to 15 picks in each of those portfolios. But listen, you got to actually be doing your research, because you can't rely on your local broker. You can't rely on Uncle Sam. And you've got to be, in my estimation, a little bit of your own champion when it comes to this. And you want to hold good quality stocks for a really long time. That is how you create wealth. It just is. You know, again, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's kind of rocket science in that you've got to be your own advocate, and that can be hard sometimes. I get it. But we're here with you to help you get the best research that's free of the conflicts of Wall Street and wokeism and government and institutional bias and the rest of it. So go check out 76research.com. You know what I am going to do? I am going to put that in the notes for you, because if you haven't done it, you should do it in my chat. 76research.com, because we don't want you to make mistakes like investors have made with Disney over the last couple of years. I mean, look, if we look at it and we think there's new opportunity and Nelson Peltz is making the right kinds of decisions, et cetera, we will tell you. But I'll tell you this, we will always tell you. We're going to be very, very frank. We are very, very frank. We're very fair. And we want our only incentive is for you to do well. Think about that. We're not like, you know, the brokerage institution that's getting a cut of this, that, and the other. Our only incentive is to provide you the best quality research to make sure you have the best portfolio for the future. Okay, speaking of people who are not exactly PC, Candace Owens is out at Daily Wire. We were talking about this the other day, but she's now out speaking about it for the first time, and I wanted to share with you some of that. You know, Ben Shapiro has not said much. We did see Jeremy Boring, who is the head of Daily Wire, is the CEO of the company. He came out and tweeted on Friday that Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship. Now, everyone's presenting this as Daily Wire firing Candace, and it's alleged to be because there was a difference of opinion on some international things. Anyway, let's hear from Candace, because she did some little sit down over the weekend, and she was asked about this, not really in a direct kind of way, but she did allude to some of the stuff that was going on. I'd like you to hear it. Let's watch.
Okay, one last question. Candace, you've had a lot of changes in the past 48 hours. What does the future hold for you?
You know, I love change. I really do. And I've always embraced it. And at every point in my career, I've known when it's time to go to the next level, when there's something bigger that I'm after, a bigger concept that I'm after, or something that I'm understanding. And, you know, I very much understand right now that we are in the midst of an awakening. All around the world, people are understanding that things are backwards and things are wrong, and there's something about it. We talked about this the other day that feels very spiritual. You know, I am a Christian, and for me, even that, Christianity being somehow treated like it's dirty, there's this rise of this term Christian nationalism in America. People that are basically trying to pervert faith, family, all of these things are attacking this crucial pillar of faith. And you know, I plan on just making everything that I have done even bigger and giving myself more independence and more freedom to talk about the topics that I believe are crucial if we are going to save ourselves and to save this world from these evil, maniacal, psychopathic globalists that want to monitor every piece of our lives. So, tons of stuff coming up. I'm excited. And I'm grateful that so many people around the world have just supported me on my journey, because at the end of the day, my loyalty will always be to truth.
Okay, well, she's grateful. She's got tons of stuff coming up. She's looking at the silver lining, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I've said this before. She's going to do fine. I don't know what went down there. I, as you know, am pretty pro-Israel myself. And I've made that very clear. I help raise money. I thank all of you. You guys were amazing on that. Your generosity was just incredible. I care very much about Israel and feel pretty strongly about the challenges that country is being faced with, and probably in agreement with some others at Daily Wire. I don't know if that's what it came down to. In other words, she had a difference of opinion there. I would hate to think that, because I think that Ben is pretty open-minded and welcomes this diversity of opinion, if you would. But it may even be as simple as, you know what, there's other opportunities out there for her. And maybe she's looking at that and she's like, oh, you know, Tucker's doing his own thing. Maybe I join Tucker. Or maybe I just actually do my own thing. I've said over and over and over again, anybody who can, should. If you have the ability, and we have the ability, I mean, it's incredible. The technology is amazing. I'm streaming here with you. Normally, I'd have a zillion people in a gigantic control room and this, that. It's like me and Drew. And when Drew's off, the audio goes, anyway, it's really kind of amazing. And I have a very, very thin, small team of people that will cut all this up after the fact and make sure that all the clips get out. So do me a favor. If you haven't subscribed, do that. Subscribe, hit thumbs up, share this, make a comment. I read all the comments, but we're lean and mean. And the truth is, you can do that nowadays, and you can do that and you can kind of save your soul, right? Like, you don't have to report to any of the higher ups. You don't have to sit there like Mika and Joe and say, I don't want this guest on my show. You can actually just not have the guest on your show. You see, you don't have the institution telling you what to do. And that is an amazing feeling. And so regardless of what she does, she's certainly been willing to court controversy, unlike a lot of people in the past. And I think that she'll continue to do that and continue to get noticed. And we wish her well. So Candace Owens going out on her own, apart from Ben Shapiro, apart from Daily Wire. You know, I love seeing you here live. And it really is. This is what's cool about this new opportunity. I wish I had known about this so many years earlier. I would have started earlier. But hey, look, we're like 2/3. How many subs are we at, guys? 200? Oh my gosh, I almost fell off my chair. I was going to say 235, but we are 243,000 strong and counting. So thank you for all of your support. It's incredible. I just want to also say I feel great. I think I look good. You know, hey, we can always tweak the lights, but I'm feeling great. And a big part of that, in my estimation, is thanks to my discovery of this wonderful company. And by the way, I'm not the only one. My kid's music teacher takes this stuff too. Balance of Nature, balanceofnature.com. I encourage you to go to Balance of Nature, read the website, read these amazing testimonials, because again, like, I feel great, but I actually feel even better knowing I'm not like the only one that feels great. I mean, the fact that the kid's music teacher called me and said, hey, Trish, I am so excited that you're taking Balance of Nature, because I've taken it for years. And I'm like, I didn't even know that you listened or watched the show. And he's like, yeah, I love it. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Balance of Nature. I think he's a bigger fan of Balance of Nature than he is of me. But anyway, you can call 1-800-246-8751. You get a great discount code. Great discount code. I'm a big believer in discounts. So use discount code TRISH. You get $10 off. You get 35% off anything you buy, and you get free shipping. So I take the fruits and veggies capsules. He actually takes them too. We were both like, oh my God, they're terrific. They're terrific. They are really terrific. I feel great. It's important to get that nutrition. And I like knowing that I've got it no matter what. Anyway, go on the website, check it out. You can see all these testimonials. They've been around in business for some 20 years, all good, natural, healthy stuff. None of those bad ingredients. In fact, it's even gluten-free. So check it out. Balance of Nature, 1-800-246-8751, and use my discount code. My discount code is my name. Pretty simple. Trish, Trish. We got some really horrible news on Friday afternoon, really horrible news that Kate Middleton, who, I don't pay much attention to the royals. I don't know as you guys do either, but this one was really something. So she's struggling badly. She has been diagnosed with cancer, and she's now in chemotherapy treatment. it was important for her to come out and say something. I get that she didn't want to, right? Because like the whole world is looking at you, and she didn't tell us what kind of cancer she had. She did ask for privacy, which we want to give her. But the reason I bring this story up is there were a lot of just bad, mean people out there. A lot of them out of Hollywood, go figure. And they were trolling her ahead of this news. Some of them, I don't know, were they friends with Meghan Markle? Is that the idea? You gotta like, you know, help out your bestie and go after Kate Middleton. This one woman who actually I liked as an actress because, rare confession, I used to watch Gossip Girl, like back when it was on television in real time. I really liked it. I have a diversity of taste. What can I say? I also like Gilmore Girls. Two very different shows, one wholesome, one not so wholesome. Anyway, Gossip Girl was like kind of, I mean, my husband would occasionally walk in and be like, what are you watching? Because it's like something you would think a 21-year-old or 16-year-old. I hope the 16-year-olds aren't watching it because it was a little, as I said, too advanced. But anyway, kind of like young girl material. But Blake Lively was one of the main actresses in this, and she's gone on to have a pretty big movie career. She may be most known for these days being Taylor Swift's BFF. Well, Blake Lively, Taylor Swift's BFF, trolled Kate Middleton kind of rudely just hours ahead of this news coming out. Can we see this? Drew, do you have that Instagram post? Yeah. So this is like, she's making fun of her for editing. And she writes, I'm sure no one cares today, but I feel like I have to acknowledge this. Okay, this is her apology. Let's go back to Drew, if you could, let's go back to that actual post. So she made this post where there's obviously clearly this just weird edit thing going on, like some kind of balloon in the air. She's simultaneously promoting some drink line. I went to her Instagram and like, she doesn't actually have a normal Instagram. Her Instagram is all just stuff where, well, you know, she's talking about this, that, and the other. And she's always promoting something there on her Instagram account. There's no actual normal pictures. So Blake Lively Instagrams this rather weird picture making fun of Kate Middleton. And then, of course, we learn that Kate Middleton has cancer. So super, super bad news. And then she sends this. And so now we can do that close up on the apology. I'm sure no one cares today, but I feel like I have to acknowledge this. I made a silly post about Photoshop fails, frenzy, and oh man, that post has me mortified today. I'm sorry. Sending love and wishes to all, always. Yeah, well, you should be mortified. And I just question like what it was really about. I don't ever see that woman ever post anything on her Instagram account. And then she chose this opportunity. I mean, maybe she figured she could she doesn't post anything on her own. I should say it's always sponsored. It's a little annoying after a while, and it's very heavily edited. I get it, okay? Like it's a commercial. And so she had to take advantage of that opportunity with Kate. I mean, look, guys, we talked about it here. I said I think something probably not so great is going on. I mean, it kind of stinks because when you sign up for that gig, you've signed up for that gig, your family signed up for that gig, and part of the gig means when bad stuff happens, the rest of the world winds up finding out. Anyway, Kate Middleton making that, let's just see a quick excerpt of her there on that park bench the other day and releasing this on Friday. We're told she wrote the entire thing herself, and it's heartfelt. It's sad.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding whilst I've been recovering from surgery. It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who have taken great care of me, for which I'm so grateful.
So you've probably seen it by now. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but you get the point. In other words, Kate Middleton, obviously in a time of need, and these trolls come out of nowhere. There was one that is like best friends, and like the reporter that reports on Meghan Markle. You want to talk access journalism? Scobie or something? I don't know his name. But anyway, this guy actually tweeted out an alarm clock with the number 6 o'clock on it because somehow he had gotten word that Kate Middleton was going to make an announcement at 6 o'clock. I mean, he's just been so beyond tacky. And look, all I can say is the celebrity culture we live in is kind of scary and kind of wrong. And I think that people that have the ability to not be trolls like Blake Lively should welcome that opportunity to not be trolls. And it's good that she apologized, but it's a little too late. A little too late. And I'm curious, is she friends with Meghan Markle? Not that we need to get too far into the gossip world of that. Gossip Girl, funny enough, that was her key show. Anyway, it is just great to have you here, as always. I want to remind you to subscribe. It is fantastic. Look at all we're doing here. If you become a team member, we're doing a thing once a week where we just have these little private conversations between us, so you can sign up for that as well. Team members here on the YouTube platform. You can watch me live on Facebook. You can watch me live on Twitter. You can watch me live on Rumble. But we've got a chit chat going on, and I see you all. Don, Disney is for you. I know you're just obsessed with that company. I hope you didn't lose money on that. But Disney is, yeah, we're going to continue watching it here. Great to see all of you guys. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of new ones as well. So let's keep the conversation going. More clips coming your way, and we will resume tomorrow. As always, I'm here. See you then.